Welcome to Protea Conversations, the podcast where leadership in business and accounting isn't just discussed, it's explored. I'm your host, Zane Stevens, and thank you for joining me as we delve into the minds of some of the most influential leaders in the industry. Our journey is one of discovery, from unraveling the unique stories that shaped our guests' careers to invaluable advice that fueled their success. We're here to provide you with simple, actionable advice to accelerate your career and personal growth. Whether you're a budding professional or a seasoned executive, these conversations are designed to offer insight and perspectives that resonate with everyone. So tune in, engage, and be inspired as we build better leaders together. Welcome to Protea Conversations. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with someone who exemplifies leadership, innovation, and deep expertise in the accounting profession, David Barbieto. David is a managing partner of Hoz Perez and Barbeito, a full-service CPA firm based in South Florida. With over 20 years of experience in public accounting, David has built a reputation of delivering exceptional audit, assurance, tax, and advisory services to a wide range of industries, from real estate to finance to healthcare and professional sports franchises. What sets David apart is his strategic mindset. Under his leadership, EB has grown into one of the top-ranked accounting firms in the region, earning accolades like Top 25 Accounting Firm in South Florida and Best Firm to Work For by Accounting Today. He's also played a key role in aligning the firm globally through its affiliation with Russell Bedford International. Beyond his professional accomplishments, David is deeply committed to his community. He serves on the board of Voices for the Children Foundation and is a founding member of Live, a nonprofit focused on leadership and empowerment. He's a thought leader, a mentor, a visionary in our profession, someone who is helping shape the future of accounting while staying grounded in the service integrity. David, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Zane.
You have so much going on in your life. It makes me feel like I got to do just a little bit more.
Nah, don't.
No, I mean, just like, how do you do it? You're running a firm, you're volunteering, you got family. How do you make time for it all?
The secret is your team.
Mm-hmm.
The secret is the people that you surround yourself with. That I believe that thoroughly. Ever since I started the profession, I always thought about who was going to replace me in my current role. I think that's a philosophy that anybody and everybody that has worked with me or for me understands, that that's how we do things. You need to find who's going to do your job. And I've been very lucky, very fortunate to find people that allow me to do more and allow me to do things that I really want to do, which is volunteer, obviously spend time with my family, and grow professional services firm.
I like that thought process, and I think I've stressed my team out a little bit over the last couple of, maybe a year and a half. You need to be prepared to replace me, and they all think I'm running away. And I'm like, no, it's what happens if something happens to me tomorrow? Like, we all need to be able to step up. There needs to be a plan. There has to be, like, what happens when that person's not there, and not just for me, but everybody in the team. Like, we don't want to replace anybody, but we need to be prepared to replace people and understand that we have to keep moving, keep adapting, keep growing. And part of that is having a great team, and a team that you feel like could step in and take over from you if necessary.
You're absolutely right, Zane. And again, we're trying to do a couple of things, but at the end of the day, the word growth, you used it. My team knows that I'm not trying to get them to replace me because I'm going to go to some beach, even though that would not be a bad thing, and get checks. Like I sometimes joke with them. But the idea is that someone has to, like, everybody has to be growing in their role. And the key there is that the people that are at the top, or the people that were there first, should also be growing. I see a lot of organizations where there's no growth at the top. And what happens to those organizations is that usually they stop growing. And the reason is because there's really no opportunity for those below to actually have the same opportunities that those on the top had or have. So you kind of have to be constantly reinventing yourself, and in a way getting out of the way for those that come after you, to be able to do what I did, which is kind of like live the dream, or whatever, like, thought or vision I had of whatever I wanted my life to be. So it's not easy, because there's a lot of fear. As accountants, we get to have that little thing of fear and conservatism, and you have to continuously be moving and letting others shine.
And that is tough. One, accountants don't like, change in general. And then people also feel like, I worked so hard. Why would I want to set this up for somebody else? Like, what's the point, right? And I think
Correct.
it's just sort of, they get thrown around their way too much, sort of rising tides lifts all shifts or whatever the specific detail is. But that's what we're
Hmm.
trying to do, right? Is just bring each other up all the time, because if I'm bringing the people up around me, well, guess what? Like, I go up with them. Like, it's not like I start sinking underwater. It's just we all move in the
No,
same direction.
that is absolutely correct. And I kind of, I had a meeting on Tuesday with a young person and we're trying to recruit. Obviously the market is tight and there's a
Hmm.
lot of opportunities for these people.
Yeah.
There's the big four, there's the regionals, there's the private equity backed firms, and then there's regional local firms like ours that are still operating maybe under an old school type way. And I said to this gentleman, make sure that you're a good fit for that firm, but also make sure that that firm is a good fit for you, because a big part of your future will be determined by the success of the overall firm. And I kind of gave them, the stock market, and I don't
Yeah.
want to go into too much detail, but usually a stock goes up and down based on the broad stock market. And this is the same thing that happens to people's careers when they choose the right or wrong firm. That's going to have a humongous impact, because if the firm's not growing, the odds of you growing are very, very low.
Yeah. That's great advice. But let's go back a little bit further
Sure.
and talk about when you were that young gentleman trying to figure out what you're going to do with your career.
Yeah.
And how did the decision come about to go into the accounting field?
So super interesting. So I'm the son of Cuban immigrants, but I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. So was there through high school, and I am also the youngest son. So my brother is a doctor,
Oh,
and
wow.
that's a very, very long career.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was time for me to decide what I wanted to do when I grew up, my mom said, "You cannot be a doctor. You have to be either an accountant or engineer. Has to be a 4-year career, because I'm old and I'm not going to basically be here for you for that long, like I did with your brother." So that narrowed it down. Now, in terms of accounting, I love numbers. I grew up as a sports fan. I'm still a very big sports fan. And record keeping became an important part of my life. I used to record keep baseball games. I know people probably listen to this are like, what is that? But you could actually do it. There's a book for it. And
Yeah.
I used to do that watching these games on TV. My dad ran a small business in Puerto Rico. I used to basically keep track of revenues and costs and these different things. So when it was time for a career, I wanted to be in business. And like I tell anybody that wants to listen, there's no better career in business than accounting. And I did. I left Puerto Rico when I was 18, came to college in Miami. My grandparents already lived here. So I had been coming to Miami throughout my childhood, learning English and different things like that. And when it was time I went to Florida International University, which is a public school down here in Miami. I graduated with a bachelor's, and I got this opportunity to work at this up and coming firm called MBAF, Morrison Bernardis, 97. That's where I started my career. I started bookkeeping. And honestly, it opened an amazing window as to what public accounting was. I really didn't know what public accounting was until I got to that place. It was eye opening.
Yeah, I mean, one, that's just an incredible story. I can't imagine having to move countries to go study something. I literally lived at home during college, went to the local college, had all the easy pleasures of my mom being there, cooking my
Yeah.
food, cleaning for me. Like, to move different country, and I've obviously moved countries. I'm originally from South Africa, but I was an adult. I sort of on my own plan already at that point in time. But talk to me about that experience of just like upping it. And again, you had a support structure, you had family, I'm sure that made it a little bit easier. But
Yeah.
Puerto Rico to Miami is quite the change.
It is, even though if you come to Miami, you'll see that it's not as big a change as you think. It's like, Miami's a little bit like Puerto Rico North or South America North. But look, it was actually great for me. And the reason it was great for me, first of all, I had a tremendous safety net, right? Like my grandparents lived here in Miami. My mom and my dad were still bankrolling
Yeah.
the lifestyle. Not a great lifestyle, but it's still bankrolling it. And I came with two of my best friends.
Yeah.
So we moved into the dorms, and it was exciting. Obviously, it was a new world, very different in terms of like the way that people dressed for college. I couldn't believe, like, it was very like, wow, like these guys, man. That's why I wear a jacket, I guess, every day. It was very different in that sense, but it was a lot of fun. But I did mature a lot because what happens is that you have to figure out things on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't even 18 yet. I was 17 because I graduated early. And, you know, like you have to wash clothes and you have to figure out what's for dinner and you have to manage a budget. And the budget was not that big. There was maybe a couple $100 a month that you had to somehow spend. And I remember, going to places like Burger King and looking at these combo offers to see if I could get lunch and dinner, like, at the same time. Go back to the dorm, put it in the fridge, take the extra soda with your free refill. So a lot of those things, a lot of those skills that kind of like then you use in real life, you pick up when you're on your own at 18. So I was very happy that I did that.
There's just so many lessons in life and budgeting, and sometimes I think when you're forced to work with a little, it makes it a lot easier to work with a lot versus vice versa. It's really like if you're just used to plenty and now so you've got a scarcity, it can be quite a tough situation. I know it can be tough to move to bigger numbers and hard because it can get in your head a little bit, but I'm sure there was a lot of good lessons there that has helped you in your career and set you up with the success that you have right now. And I'm sure we'll touch on that. But tell me about college in Miami, because you see the stories, you hear the stories. It sounds like when my kids wanted to go to college one day, they say I want to go to Miami. I want to say no. I need to study a little bit.
Well, here's the reality of Miami's just not a college town, right? Like, so I lived in the dorms, but Miami's a very big city, right? Like, so for you to have fun at 18, first of all, you couldn't do much because you were not 21. By the way, Puerto Rico, we don't have those types of 21-year-old rules. So, so you get here and you're like, what do you mean I need an ID? You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of a change. I don't recommend Miami as a college town. I do recommend it as a place for you to live and make a career out of it. Yeah. For me, because I was coming from Puerto Rico, it actually was a little bit of my high school here in Miami because I met a lot of people in college that now I still are friendly with and I work with or do business with. But from that fun perspective, it was kind of like the community in the dorms. And the dorms at this school were for either athletes or international students. There were not really people from Miami that lived at the dorms. So it wasn't as an expansive, let's say, experience as I thought it was going to be. But it was my entrance into Miami. Yeah. And and South Beach is there. Coconut Grove was a thing. And believe it or not, like I met a lot of South American people while in my at FIU. We're in Puerto Rico. Yeah, it's part of the Caribbean, Latin America, but there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. We're in Miami. We have a lot of Venezuelans, Argentines, Chileans. So I got to interact with a lot of people that I had not interacted before in my life. And I think that helped me tremendously in terms of like growing the business and be able to connect with people that are maybe not from your same town or country.
No, there's a lot of benefit in that, and sort of meeting people from all sorts of backgrounds and understanding that, people can be people, but their cultural backgrounds and their upbringing can make a very big difference in the way you have to interact them and what's acceptable in terms of interaction. So getting into some sort of, college where you do have to interact with a lot of people, that's a great life experience in itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, it was kind of interesting because you think that, we're Hispanics, we speak Spanish, we're Latin America, but there are differences even within those groups of people that we think that we're the same. And again, we're very similar, but there's still some differences in there. And to have been able to figure those out and work on those when I was 18, 19, like now, much older, it's really made a difference in the way that I feel I connect with these different nationalities.
And probably slightly different versions of Spanish as well.
Yeah. They couldn't understand my Puerto Rican. They couldn't. They really couldn't.
Oh, when I moved, they couldn't understand my English. So it's,
I could see that. Yeah.
So tell me, why did you stay in public accounting and not become a sports analyst? If you love the numbers.
Okay, so honestly, like I said, I walk into this place and it opens this window of like what public accounting really is, right? And there's this bunch of successful men and women doing work that actually appeals to me. They're serving other people. They're serving clients, right? Interestingly enough, one of the main reasons I joined this firm was because they handled the audit of a professional sports team called the Denver Broncos.
Oh, wow.
So they went to campus, they went to FIU, and they presented, and they said that they did this audit. And I'm like, wow, this local firm works with this type of franchise. I couldn't believe it. And believe it or not, within probably like 6 months, I get an opportunity through somebody that I know that they were looking for someone at this firm. And honestly, I took their first offer. I didn't even negotiate. I was like, look, this is an opportunity to combine my passion for sports with, again, not a passion at that point, but what I'm going to do for a living for the rest of my life. And it worked out. And I'm happy to report that, within the 16 years that I was at that firm, I became the partner in charge of both the audit for that team and another NFL franchise, which is one of, like, again, talking about the firm that you join and how it helps you grow.
Yeah.
Those opportunities would not have been there maybe if I would have taken a job with another firm. So that helped out a lot in terms of giving this opportunity a longer chance, because I was very engaged with it. Actually, we're calculating salary caps and doing revenue audits and things of that nature. So it was a lot of fun. And what that gave me, it opened this door to like be really good at something, which then kind of wants you to be more active in it, right? Like, a lot of people pursue their passion. I don't know if you follow Professor Galloway, NYU professor. He's written a couple of books, and he talks about young men specifically. Don't follow your passion too much, because just get good at something.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I did. I got really good at something, and then it became my passion.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess because there was this little parallel with your passion, it makes it just a little bit easier, right? And
absolutely,
I'm assuming you've been doing this for a long time. You're pretty good at it as well, which I think always helps at the same time.
Yeah, it does, and obviously, like, look, there's the level of competition. Like, we accountants, we're competitive folks too, and these are organizations that you join, and there's 60 people, and then there's, like, by the way, that firm grew from about 60 people when I joined to about 400 people when I left, and I would love to take all the credit for it, but the leadership was amazing, and the opportunity.
Take some of the credit at least.
Okay, at least I'll take 5%. But more importantly, it was the opportunities that it provided. Those that were there, that were willing to put in the hours and do what it needs to happen. It was really a great time, to be young, to be busy, to make money, to learn, and to get really good at something. I think that's what the 20s are for. I think now that I'm almost 50, I realized how lucky I was that I was able to fully invest my 20s into what I'm still doing. So that was a big advantage for me.
Yeah, and I mean, not everybody's fortunate enough to land in a position that they love, right? I mean, you spent 16 years there. That means it must have made you happy. Like, nobody sticks around for 16 years miserable.
No. And look, I think at the end of the day, my decision to leave was not because I didn't want to be there. It's just because I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to basically see what I could do on my own. Could I do something like what had been done here? Not gonna lie, I don't think the succession plan was in place for me to feel that there was something more there for me. So I was getting close to my 40s, and it was kind of like time for me to figure out if I could do it on my own. And that's how I make the decision. Not because I was unhappy. Again, tremendous opportunity. At that point, I had my partner at 30. I was the head of the audit department. We were top 40 firm in the United States. The role was there, and I had achieved. I just didn't know if that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and you ticked a bunch of boxes, right? May partner, leading the audit department. The firm's a big 40. Who knows if they're going to go any bigger? So, take top 50 firm. That's fantastic.
Correct.
And you decide, let's go do my own thing.
Yeah.
So talk me through that process. Like, I mean, 16 years at some place, and all of a sudden, like, I'm just going to tear my body away and I'm going to go do something totally different that's going to be my own. I can do it my own way. What did that process look like?
A lot of fear, a lot of thoughts, a lot of back and forth, a lot of conversations with your parents, even though You're 40. I think my mom's still upset that I left. Again, you got to understand Cuban immigrants, like your son has made it, like in their mind,
Yeah,
that's it. And I literally kind of went from like the penthouse to the basement, right? Like I
yeah.
had an office overlooking Biscayne Bay, beautiful. I had a team of about 50 people just in the audit department. And I don't know. I think a lot of people thought I was crazy. I do think that I went through some of that myself
I mean,
because
you were 100% crazy. Like that. Like let's take that off. You were crazy. Like it was nuts to do it, but yeah, we are.
I just thought that there was a way of doing it a little different.
Yeah,
And again, succession, just so you know, like this firm, about 7 years after I left, we sold it to BDO. So
yeah,
the firm is no longer independent, it was rolled up. And
yeah,
I could sense that this was going to happen. And I didn't want to be, at that point, I didn't know when it was going to happen. I just knew it was going to happen. So I don't
yeah,
want to be 50 years old after working for a place for 30 years and now be an employee of a $3.6 billion firm or whatever it was at that point. I don't know. It could have been any firm, but
Go
I
from
just had
go from fifth in line to 50th in line.
the or 500th.
Yeah, yeah, true.
I just had those feelings, and I was always like, what would it look like? And what I realize is that there's just a lot of I love to serve. I have this thing where I want to serve others. I don't know. Maybe some people say it's people pleasing. I don't know what it was, but I just knew that I could build something that may not have been as big as I thought or as big as the firm that I was with. I did think that I could build something that would support my lifestyle the same as I had at that other firm, but that
Yeah,
it would be mine. And so I did. I didn't go independent. As you can see, I work for a firm with other names. I had met Christina Perez, my partner, at FIU, so it was kind
yeah,
of like one of those first people that I met.
yeah.
She had gone the Big Four route. She had gone to KPMG, and then she had gone work for her brother, which is George De Laos, who's the D on DPB. And we decided to basically try to create a full service firm. At that time, I was an audit partner, and they were very good at international tax. They had a very boutique practice, but very good boutique practice, serving those clients, and thought that we could basically create something where we could compete with bigger firms that maybe clients wanted like more personal service, or maybe they didn't want to pay those outrageous fees that some firms are charging now. And lo and behold, it's worked. It
Yeah.
worked.
No, I mean it's so intriguing how you took a bit of knowledge that you have, right? And obviously you had deep knowledge. You're part of the leadership team at this bigger firm. You sort of saw how it worked. You understood what you liked, understand what you didn't like. And then you came in with some people that had very specialized knowledge and you slammed into each other
Mhm.
and turned into what is just a great firm,
Thank you.
touching many different departments, seeing a ton of growth, and clearly, you know, knowing who you are and sort of all the community work you do, doing some good at the same time, which I think is incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as I go back, obviously it's been 12 years and like I
Yeah,
spent 16 years. So I still been longer at the other firm than I've been here. But the truth saying is that without the first 16 that I did at the other firm, these 12 years may not have been possible. So I do give a lot of credit to where I come from.
yeah, of course.
I stand in the shoulders of titans, starting probably with my mom and my dad. But there's just been a lot of opportunity. And I look now at people that started with me. They took a chance on me, right? Because a lot of these folks came from other firms and some took pay cuts or some knew that there was some risk taking it. And to see the success of those people really makes me very proud because like I think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create something that obviously is very accretive to me and my family. But to do it just for me, that's just not something that resonates with me. I'm a community guy, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it said, you were mentioning international tax and you had the audit background and, read your services now, tax compliance services, audit reviews and compilations, litigation support and forensic accounting, bookkeeping and write-up, IRS representation, due diligence for M&A, estates and trust planning, tax preparation, entity selection, restructuring, international tax. So you do all the business stuff.
We
You
do.
support businesses in all the areas that they really need from their accountant in a good way. Obviously, a smaller firm than you were used to. Similar size to where you started with the first 16-year journey, right?
Yeah, like that's where we are right now. When I joined George and Christina back in 14, when I joined, we were about 5, 6 people. And I think we're close to 60 people. So that's where all those different lines of services and those different verticals, like they call them, you can find it now under, like, I guess, one roof, which is the DPB roof. And again, I think culturally, I think we have a lot of people that are very aligned and in the way that maybe not so much aligned as to where they want to take the firm, but aligned in the way that they treat people and aligned in the way that, what's a reasonable work day and what's a reasonable work-life balance and all these different things that are very important when you're managing a team.
I guess the question is, and maybe this is one for your parents, like, are you happy with what you've built so far?
I am. I am. Unfortunately, my dad's now no longer around, so I'm not gonna get too sentimental, even though it hurts. But yeah, super proud. Super proud of what we built. Part of building something like this and success and all these different things is that you kind of get a little addicted to it, right? So you kind of get into this like never enough type deal. So do I see myself as completely achieved or successful? I don't. I think that there's so much to do. I get comments from people, and obviously everybody loves to be talked up and thank you so much. But I talk in my post. I've talked about imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you saw it, but Steph Curry, you're in California, Golden State Warrior Steph Curry, he won the Olympics pretty much on his own, and he came out a couple of days ago that he suffers from imposter syndrome. So I'm like, wow, like this guy's on top of the world, and he still deals with that stuff. But yeah, I think you have to celebrate your success, but you can't get caught up on it because at the end of the day, life. There's much more to do. And again, if you're doing it for a group of people and you're looking to build something that's bigger than you or me, then you just wake up the next day and you come up with another idea.
Yeah. I think that's what like makes successful people, right? It's like, oh, yes, the goal. And as soon as we're about to get it, like, well, here's the next goal. And we just keep moving, right? And we just keep moving the goalposts because we expect more from ourselves.
You do, and we do, but that's, again, that's kind of like the good and the bad, right? Because, and I don't know, there's this gentleman called Benjamin Hardy. He writes books, and he wrote this series with Dan Sullivan. And one of the books is called The Gap and the Gain, right? And we live in that, like, always going back and forth. And unfortunately, we live too much in the gap. And what's the gap? What you just explained. Like, we're here and we wanted to be there, but now we're here. And I think one of the things that I'm working on as I've gotten older is try to look back and see the gain. Yeah. Not always look at the gap, but look back and see where that gain has been. And, like 18-year-old kid got here from Puerto Rico. There's a lot to that has been gained. But that gap, man, I'm telling you.
Yeah, but it's incredible, right? Your mom was not happy with you when you moved first, but now your name's up on a building, a successful building like that. I know she's proud of you. I mean,
no, she is, and we've like I now give her a hard time.
Like, I'm sure she still gives you a hard time about the decisions. Like, it could have been,
Yeah.
But I guess that's the sort of the support in the background that we all need, right? Somebody that's pushing us to be the best version of ourselves, wants the best for us all the time, and it's. I can hear it in the way you've spoken to me about it, and every time you mentioned your parents, they clearly supported you in a great way. I mean, to have a doctor and a very successsul accountant, good gracious.
And a teacher. We have a sister in the middle, and she's amazing at what she does.
Well, I mean, that's the most successful one of the bunch, but,
Well, she's giving more to society than me and my brother, I can tell you that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is incredible. I mean, it is a crazy story, just like, I mean, think about it starts in Cuba, like,
yeah.
People haven't heard about Cuba and what that is like. Go have a look, do some research. I'm sure your parents gave up a lot of sacrifices moving to Puerto Rico.
Absolutely, and the story is it's, and I'll do 30 seconds because I do think it's important for people to go look at what happened there. And you just have to be very vigilant. So the big decision was my grandparents, especially my paternal grandfather. He basically came from nothing. 1960, he basically had a couple businesses, and the Cuban government just went into his place, into his business, and they took it from him. They told him that he had to leave. And that man was close to 60 years old, and he got on a plane and he came to this country because my parents actually came to the US before they went to Puerto Rico. And no questions asked. He was a bag boy, a stock boy at a supermarket in New Jersey after being a business owner. And I think about that because at the end of the day, what you realize is that that decision that my grandfather made actually changed my life.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's important for people to recognize that stuff and to think about all the decisions that were made before you were even born that have something to do with who you are today. And we're very proud of our heritage, obviously, and those decisions that changed the trend, the life of my grandfather, probably in a negative way, but those that came after him in a very, very positive way.
Yeah, no, that's thank you for sharing that. That was really, I have goosebumps.
Wow, I do too.
Yeah, no, just incredible. And it's sometimes important for us all to sit back and just think about the people that came before us and the sacrifices they made and the big difference that it made in their life. I mean, I personally can sit back and think of the sacrifices my parents made with very little money back in South Africa. And now I'm sitting a little fancy here in California, right? Sunshine on my face just here. And, I can do it without their sacrifices that they put up. And, I know my parents don't talk about the sacrifices, but I saw it. I was there. I saw the things they gave up, the things they weren't able to do. I had stuff, they didn't have stuff. You see those things, and it makes a big difference and has an impact on your life. And you clearly have a very special family.
Thank you, Zane.
I'm very honored to have heard a little bit of your story, and I'm so thankful you shared it with me. And you're building something incredible. And that's what we're going to be celebrating. It is such an interesting, move, right? You were, let's be honest, you were in a pretty cozy position, right? You're at a big firm, things going well, you made this massive change. Just talk me through the mindset and that, it must have been so scary, especially maybe the first 6 months, year, few years, as now all of a sudden, you're responsible for a bunch of people where you work. Now all of a sudden, you're responsible, an obligation to these people that have decided to join you. They're taking, like you said, they took a risk on you. Some of them took pay cuts. They believed in you as a leader. What is that pressure like? How did that feel in the beginning?
Look, again, I think the word that I used, it was scary. It was very scary. Phone's not ringing. You still have a non-compete, a non-solicitation. You really don't want to mess with a firm that you just left and gave 16 years of your life to because they also gave you a lot of stuff. So you don't want to go there, but you get up in the morning and you go through your motions, right? You keep going to an office. You just, you shave, you put your jacket on. By the way, you have no work. right? But you keep going and you stare at the phone. The phone's not ringing. There's no emails coming in. But you start making phone calls. You start asking people, how can you help them? And then the beautiful thing about it is that you start cashing in on chips that you have invested in or planted, chips or seeds that you planted 10, 15 years ago. People come to you and they tell you, I don't know if you remember, but 12 years ago, you helped me with this. I know you just started your own firm. You want to do my 1040? I have a cousin that just started a business and he may need some bookkeeping. And you're like, sure, we do bookkeeping. so there's a lot of...
We do it now.
Yeah, my big joke, it was we were doing car washes and windows. It was kind of didn't matter, but luckily I didn't have to do many of those. But you start cashing in those things that you're like, wow, I honestly don't remember that I did that, but here you go. And then what happens, Zane, is you have to really think about what you want to build. I think a lot of folks just go and start kind of getting clients and trying to do all the work themselves. And I had spent 16 years helping someone or some, partners build a firm. So in my heart, I've always been a firm guy. I've never been a sole proprietorship or a sole practitioner. So I stuck with that. And I think that's one of the things that when you look at the success and being a top 400 firm in the nation and all these different things, it's that I basically kept that fire of building a firm. So what does that look like? when you're about $150,000 in revenue, you go out and you bring $150,000 worth of salary because you have this belief that you're going to be able to scale it to 400 grand. So there's definitely some risks that are taken along the way, and that's where the entrepreneurship part kicks in. I've never been your typical accountant. I love my accountant. I am an accountant too, but I embrace change. I like change. Ever since I moved from Puerto Rico to Miami, and I saw how that kind of like helped me, I've always been trying to look for that. If you ask me, the thing that I can't stand is being the same. If I don't feel that there's a little bit of a forward momentum as to where I'm going, I struggle with that. Being stuck is not where I want to be. So I think that's a little bit of a competitive advantage that I might have to do these things, where maybe some other people would be like very, very worried. And then I guess I started thinking about the worst thing that could happen. Right. And, we're accountants, so we're for like risk. What is the worst thing that can happen? And I arrived at that the worst thing that could happen is that I would have to go to my old boss and ask for a job back. And honestly, I would have had to swallow my pride and my ego and all these different things, but there probably would have been a job for me there or any other firm. So when people evaluate the risk of going on your own and these things, I think people tend to estimate that risk, because there's always the possibility of going back to where you were or going back to someone that actually can get work. Because let's face it, the work still needs to be done, and there's millions and millions of hours that need to be accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit like, it doesn't probably get said a lot. Like, there's a lot of accounting work, right? And there's always risk in going out on your own, but probably less risk than most professions, because if it doesn't work out, there are options. There will be people that will hire you. They're not going to be like, oh, you failed at running your own firm? No, we're not hiring you. Like, they're going to be like, oh, you spend time running your own firm? Fantastic. It's a great skill set. Come on. Like, here's a job, right? Like, so it's the truth. There's a little bit less pressure until you start hiring those people, right? And I always think when I wake up every single morning and I go, I have 40 people that are reliant on me for a job. And I think that's when the pressure really starts kicking in, right? And I get even worse. I go, 40 people. On average, a household is 3 people. So it's 40 times 3 people. How many dependents do they have? Oh my gosh, is there like 200 people reliant on me? Like, those type of numbers. And for me, that's what drives me on a daily basis and wanting to be better. And you talk about your growth mindset, right? Like, it's nothing worse than being stagnant, being stagnant and just not moving forward. And that drives you forward. And part of me sometimes thinks, as an accountant, especially an accountant that wants to lead a firm, that growth mindset is so important. And, maybe it's like good sign as an accountant. If you're a leader of an accounting firm and all of a sudden you don't care that you're not moving forward, that's probably the time to retire.
I completely agree. And I think one big distinction as to when people kind of go out and everybody talks about, I'm going to open my own firm.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a big difference between owning a firm or trying to build a firm, or you can basically create a job for yourself, right? Yeah. And those are 2 different things. And I think what happens is that a lot of the sole practitioners, we're about 45,000 firms in the United States. So there's a lot of sole practitioners out there, and all great job, but they're not trying to build a firm. They're really trying to basically get work so they can do it. They can get paid directly from the client, and they can live a nice life, and nothing wrong with that.
They're building a lifestyle, right?
They're building a lifestyle. For me, I was going to create a firm that had, the vision that I have for this firm, or I was going to go work for a firm. I was not going to create a job for me where I was just going to be doing that type of work myself. I wanted to create opportunities for others. I wanted to lead others. I thrive on it. I would love to own or lead, not own, because there's a lot of partners that you need, but I would love to lead a 1,000 person organization. Like those things really drive me, because I want to be part of their success. I want to be part of their growth and their story.
That's fantastic. David, what's next for DPB?
Look, like on the short term, obviously we're looking at technology. I think we really need to get better. We need to get organized with our processes. And then we need to take a look at AI. and again, I don't know, everybody's saying AI. I don't know if it's AI. I just would like to move into a more digital presence
Yeah.
for a firm like ours, almost like digital first,
Mm-hmm.
and go from there. I obviously would love to continue to grow. We grew 53% in 22 and 23 back-to-back years. It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. So we're looking for more reasonable growth numbers where our margins are not impacted as much.
Yeah.
And then obviously looking for opportunities for those sole practitioners or smaller firms that would like to be part of a bigger outfit and see
Yeah.
how we can work together for it to be beneficial for both parties. So I think that short term, I think if you ask me the number one thing that I get up in the morning and I talk to ChatGPT about or I research is like, where do we need to be with our technology stack and where are we and where we would like to be. And that needs to go, that has to be something that's addressed now.
Well, I mean, I had the pleasure of listening to Jason Stats live this week, and if you're thinking about technology and you're thinking forward in process, you're part of the 1% of accountants out there,
Yeah.
and you're setting yourself up for success. So just the process of at least considering it, you're setting, you're taking the right steps for your firm and making sure that you're relevant in a few years' time.
Yeah, I'll be in Vegas. AICPA has the Engage conference next week, and again, there's a bunch of stuff like it's a humongous conference. You're going to talk about pretty much tax, audit, practice management, and it's interesting because I want to hear about technology, but I don't want to just hear about AI.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like
We'll be prepared. That's all going to be AI.
No, I know, but I'm trying to kind of filter through the schedule and what are firms doing? And again, we need a policy in AI. I know. We can ask AI anything. I know. But how's the client experience? What's that client experience with our firm? And I think that's really, I think about a lot because I'm a consumer too, and I know how I'm consuming these days. And it's better be mobile or somehow related to a computer or a phone.
Yeah. And I think it's important to be thinking technology, thinking AI, but at the same time, how do you maintain exceptional client service?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's where that should be the main focus. And how do we improve that experience that the clients have?
David, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice, and I don't think it was told to me. A lot of the messaging that occurred at my previous firm was kind of like ingrained, but leading by example. You have to walk the talk. You have to really, like it's okay what you say and you can kind of lead. But at the end of the day, if you're going to lead a group of successful and high performing people, you kind of have to charge the battlefield with them. You have to be there with them in the trenches. I think I've done that. I continue to do that. I want to be connected to the firm, even though maybe I'm the CEO or whatever. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're still doing audits and tax returns and reviews. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And, I think people sometimes think like really big, like you got to lead by example, but it can be small things. Like if there's a notice in your office that you have to put your dishes in the dishwasher, put your dishes in the dishwasher, show people that, hey, I'm the CEO. I can do it. You can do it. There's a new piece of technology, be the first one using it, be the most, ask the most questions, be optimistic about it. It's those small actions on a daily basis that actually have the biggest effect. It's those small ripples, right? Like in the water. It's like your grandfather took up a job bagging groceries. That was a small ripple towards your success. And those small changes is really how you lead by example, by really stepping out and telling people, hey, it's good enough for me, it's good enough for you, and we're all going to do it together.
Yeah, I'm still the guy, like I'm piece of paper on the floor, I'm there, like, just picking up things. And I'm not a big guy, like the printer. People print stuff, they don't pick it up. I'm there in the printer, like who's, like, but again, it's like, it's things that still connect you. And when you basically are there almost delivering the mail to people and you're the CEO of the organization or you're washing your own cup because that's the rule. I think those are things that people notice. And that's how you create culture or build it at least.
So you build a good culture. Great. You mentioned right early on that you guys are busy recruiting and there's a talent shortage. And I like to ask other accountants this. What do we tell people in college right now to get them excited about the accounting industry?
That's very interesting. By the time we're recruiting already accountants, so from that standpoint, now we got to convince them as to kind of come work with us.
Well, I mean, convincing people to come to public accounting is hard enough, right? Like,
Correct. But look, I think I talk a lot about my story because I was never meant to be a lifer. I went to accounting school. I knew I wanted to get my CPA. I knew I wanted to have 2 years of public accounting experience, but then I was going to be CFO or open my own business selling water, bottled water or anything. And I just tell people that in my humble opinion, there's no better way of starting your career than public accounting. If you go back, and I'm doing this now for almost 30 years, and the amount of business owners, the amount of business models, the amount of businesses in general that I have been exposed to has made me a much better professional. Obviously, also CEO, entrepreneur, all these things that now I am. Business owner, yeah. And I don't know if you could do that with any other career there is. But you need to want to have a little bit of that. If you like the same things all over again, closing the month I'm just not that guy. I want to be, and that's why the smaller firm, in my opinion, was better because, you can get stuck in an audit for a big four for like 6 months. Yeah. In 6 months at my old firm, even now, we may do 30 audits, right? Because you're rotating and you're going to a distributor. This guy sells fish. This guy sells shirts. You're going to the professional sports team. So we were just basically exposed to so many things. And that exposure when you're in your 20s, I don't think that you could beat that. Maybe private banking will give you that feel because you're dealing with M&A and things like that. But that's the pitch I would do. I convinced my daughter. My daughter's a freshman in UF.
Nice.
She's studying accounting. So we'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, I'm very proud of her. She just finished her first year. Thank you.
David, I've really appreciated this conversation. I really appreciate how much you shared with us so far. But I'm going to ask you to please tell us something about your personal life that will give us a better insight into who's David outside of the suit, outside of the office. Like, what are you in your spare time?
I'm an avid sports watcher. So my parents on that journey, they lived in New York for a while, and I'm a big New York Mets fan. So you could catch me watching a lot of that on TV. Probably too much. My wife doesn't like it, but and a more fun. I am a frustrated singer. Love karaoke. I love to sing, mostly in Spanish. So you're gonna have to work on that, Zane. Maybe we could do a duo sometime.
Hey, as long as it's a good beat, I'm there.
And the thing that I love most, honestly, is traveling with my kids and my wife. Like we've done tremendous traveling, and for us, it's amazing. For me, I have a 19, which is the one in college, but then I have a 9-year-old, and yeah, and to experience the world with both of them and to be able to show them those things that, I'm getting to know at 48, 49, and they're getting to know at 14, 15 in the case of the older one. I think it's been a blessing and very proud of that. And we've done Asia, we've done Europe, and we're going to Montana now for July 4th. So baseball, singing, karaoke, and scotch. That's it.
Those are some good things right there. I'm iffy on the baseball. I grew up with cricket, so
Okay.
There's a decent amount of cricket out there by you guys.
Well, you have to I watch those cricket games and I still don't understand how you can hit a home run going backward.
Wherever you want to, it can go there, right?
Yeah, that's the only thing I don't understand. Other than that, I think I'm catching on with the rules.
It's a good time to just have a couple of beers and enjoy the sunshine. So there's always that part of it.
Love it.
Yeah, David, I've really appreciated this time. We like to finish with 5 rapid fire questions. If you're ready, I can give them to you.
All right, let's go.
I think the first one is perfect. What is your dream vacation?
A dream vacation, and I just did this. So Four Seasons has this flight. So around the world, you basically get on their own plane, and it's on my bucket list. And maybe one day when I retire, my wife and I can do that. That would be my dream vacation.
I have to look that up. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, check it out. They have their own plane.
Wow. Number 2, do you prefer audiobooks or paper books?
Honestly, I prefer paper, but I only listen to books nowadays. It's the time in the car. It's very useful.
Yeah, That's me too. I've got 3 books next to my bed, but I'd probably go through 7, 8 audiobooks before I get to one paper book.
Yeah.
If you have 20 minutes to exercise, what would that exercise be?
I walk. Maybe I need to go lift weights. I've been told a million times, but like right now, I'm trying to walk an hour a day. So those are the 20 minutes. By the way, listening to a book.
I've learned to love walking so much, especially because I can put something in my ear and listen to it.
Yeah.
What is your favorite piece of technology that makes your life better?
My love-hate relationship with my iPhone. My iPhone allows me to be in Europe for a month and honestly feel that I'm connected, but it also creates issues at home when my wife gets jealous of it.
Yeah, I think we're all going to be better at just putting it aside once in a while, right?
Yeah.
David, last question. What is your favorite meal when you were growing up?
My favorite meal growing up. So for my birthdays, we used to go to this Mexican place called Casa Maria. That was my birthday. And I used to have these combo fajitas. Again, it's Puerto Rico. So Mexican food was like not as popular even in the US. I think the US, they have more Mexican food. So combo fajitas, they had shrimp, chicken, beef, and then they had this fried ice cream.
Nice.
Yeah, grew up on it. So that would be it.
That's exceptional. David, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being part of Product Conversations.
My pleasure, Zane. Thank you again for having me.
And with that, we ended another Product Conversations. Thank you for joining us in this journey of learning and inspiration. Today, we've gained insight from our guest and taken another step towards understanding the diverse tapestry of leadership in business and accounting. Remember, each conversation is a step towards the positive transformation of business leaders. We hope our discussion has given you valuable takeaways to apply in your own career and life. Don't forget to subscribe to Product Conversations on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so connect with me on social media channels. I'm most active on LinkedIn and would love you to join the conversation. Join us next time for more engaging stories, advice, and conversations that matter. Until then, keep striving for excellence, embracing growth. Thank you for listening, be kind, and goodbye from Product Conversations.